Welcome to the Ministry Chick Network podcast. I'm Melissa Mashburn, and here's something I have noticed. The women in ministry who feel the least confident are almost always the ones leading the most. They're carrying rooms, making hard calls, showing up every week, and still asking themselves if they belong at the table. Ooh, today's guest has spent years studying why that happens and what it takes to actually change it. Reverend Dr. Amy Cedrone is a professor, Bible teacher, retired pastor, and seminary faculty member who is going to say some things today that I think you have needed to hear for a very long time. Let's jump into the conversation now. Well, hello, Amy. I am thrilled that we get a chance to talk. For those that are meeting you for the very first time today, I would love for you to just to take a few minutes to share a little bit about yourself, your family, your ministry journey, and what you're doing today. And oh, don't forget about the new grandbaby.
Oh, I won't forget. How could I forget? First of all, thank you so much for having me on. It's really an honor. I have loved what you've done with Ministry Chick. I've loved watching you, cheering you on since you've taken the helm, and just love what God's doing through you. So
Yeah,
it's an honor to be
thank you.
here and to be asked to be on this podcast. So yeah. Thanks for the introduction. That was real nice. So, yeah, first and foremost, I'm a new grandmother, and it's the best thing ever. I just got back from Florida after
Um,
seeing our little grandbaby, um, and it's wonderful. He's a doll. He's perfect, and if you wanna be my best friend, just tell me how perfect he is.
exactly.
Yes, he's adorable. So yes, I have 2 boys, 2 grown boys,
Hmm.
Tanner and Carter, and I have the loveliest daughter-in-laws you could ever meet. Super enjoying being a mother-in-law to them and having some females up in my home. We used to call our house the Cedrone testosterone zone 'cause there
Wow.
I was the only female, and
Yep.
now it's so lovely to have the most precious daughter-in-laws I
Um,
could have. So I've been enjoying this new phase of, they're kind of early in their marriage, and we're empty nesters now and grandparents. So it's just been a wonderful new journey. I didn't even realize that there was a chapter closing and
wow.
a new one beginning. And almost feels like, do you ever have those moments where you're like, maybe it's not a chapter, maybe it's a whole new book? Like,
Mm,
I feel like there's a whole new book on my shelf.
yeah,
So it's been a really joyful, not without its nicks and pain points, but it's been a really joyful season. But
yeah.
so I am a pastor. I call myself a retired pastor. I was a women's pastor, a young adult pastor. I was honored to be on the preaching team of our church, which was a huge honor. Um, and then in 2020, I left that role to help lead an organization called Polished, which
Hmm.
you're familiar with. And
Yeah.
so I went into nonprofit world at the same time as COVID, the same time as I started my doctoral work. And
Mm,
so it was a whirlwind. But I ended up becoming the executive director for that nonprofit. And I did that for a while finishing my degree. And now I have the joy of being a professor at Pillar Seminary, and
yeah.
you're very familiar with that.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah, but I tell you what, I started out thinking that, both my husband and I thought we were going to end up on the mission field. We
Oh,
happened to I was sit on the board of an organization called Fountain of Hope, or Friends of Fountain of Hope Cambodia,
okay.
and, that's really near and dear to my heart, and we really thought that we were going to be full-time missionaries there. And we'd taken the boys when they were little and looked at schools and had a ministry opportunity lined up. And
Yeah.
through a series of circumstances, God closed that door. And we grieved that for a good year or more. But
Wow.
I just think so. My history is a plan B. It's a series of plan Bs, which I think, don't you think plan B stands for God's plan best?
Oh, I like
I
that.
think it's plan best. And so here I
Good
am,
best.
just, asking the Lord, what's my next faithful step? And
Mm,
here I am, sitting
yeah.
in. seminary classroom full of students that I love.
That's
So,
amazing. It
yeah,
really is a not a new chapter, a whole new book, like,
yeah,
that book of seasons closed, and you celebrated it, and
right.
now he's like, "Okay, so we have a whole new book that we're rolling into, and we're gonna do this, this, and this," and it's nothing like you thought, and it's probably even better than you imagined, but it still takes a little while to adjust,
Yes.
right?
Yes, it does. Even with all the planning of seminary and working on my doctorate, like, I knew I was going somewhere, I just didn't know exactly where,
Yeah,
you know? And so
yeah.
it's this weird mix of, like, okay, I'm gonna plan, I'm gonna steward the opportunities he's put
Mm,
in front of me, but I'm also kind of clueless
yeah,
about how that's gonna end up and where that's gonna end.
yeah,
And man, it's a faith journey, and I'm sure people listening are probably nodding their heads going, "Yeah, it's like he puts us in the river, like John Ortberg said, on our canoe, but he also gives us these oars,
yeah,
to kinda navigate." So, I'm not
yeah.
sure where the river's gonna end up.
Never sure where the river's
Yes,
gonna end up
yes,
until he calls me home, but
that's
otherwise,
that's right. We do know
right?
the ultimate.
I don't know, and I love that you even say, "I have a plan and I'm being faithful and obedient in doing the thing, but I don't actually know
Yeah, yeah,
what it's gonna look like, or if I'm gonna go in that direction," like you said, you thought you were gonna be on the mission field.
yeah, exactly.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay.
Abraham's such a stud muffin. Can I say that?
Yep.
In the Bible, I think about all those guys, he was promised the promised land. He never saw it with his earthly eyes,
Mm,
really, but I think his eyes were on the Father,
yeah.
not on maybe we could say it, his eyes were on the person, not the place, you
Mm.
know? As pastors, we have to have alliteration, like those peas, you know? So the
Yes.
eyes are on the person and not the
Yeah,
place where
and we do like a three-point outline,
that
so
was just 2. Well, I'll think of a 3rd P
well,
maybe.
it'll come, but you spent 13 years on a church staff, and now you're training the next generation of ministry leaders at a seminary, which is amazing. For the woman that is listening right now who is wondering what her own next chapter might look like, I mean, this is perfect as we've talked about
Yeah.
closing a book and a chapter and all. What did the shift from doing the ministry yourself, right, to equipping others for it teach you about yourself?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The first thing that comes to mind is doing the work myself was great, but I was missing out on the joy of seeing others be called into it and being
Mm,
encouraged in it. And
mhm.
so equipping women, it's a selfish thing for me in one regard that I absolutely love watching them step into their call. It just
Oh, yeah.
floats my boat. And so I love that. I love it. The other side of that is the incredible need that we have for trustworthy, dedicated, committed, faithful followers of Christ stepping
Mm,
into ministry roles,
yeah.
especially women. And I don't necessarily mean vocational
Right,
ministry roles.
right.
You can have formal ministry and informal ministry. I do happen to believe, like Jill Briscoe used to say, your ministry is between your feet. If you look down and see where your feet are, that's your ministry
I
space.
love Jill
Your mission,
Briscoe.
you know,
Yeah.
that's your mission field, right? And so uh, there is a huge need
Mm,
and a need for women's voices as well too, kind of filling out this blessed alliance, as Carolyn Custis James calls this co-leadership of male and female leading
mhm.
together and ruling together. And so there's a huge need for it. And if I can have a small hand in launching people into what God is calling them to do, encouraging them, confirming a call in
Yeah.
their lives. Because I think a lot of women need a confirmation and an affirmation that,
Mm,
yes, God has called you.
yeah.
Despite what sometimes the church says, despite what some institutions say or culture might say about your value, worthiness, ability as a woman, I think we need to call out what's true.
Mm.
And so I think sometimes women need that affirmation.
Yeah.
They're not a fraud.
Yeah, oh,
They have the
because we
calling.
go there.
We
We
do,
go there. The imposter syndrome is real. It's a thing.
we do.
Um, which honestly, Amy, I'm kind of glad that you just said what you said the way you said it. Here's why, because you've led in several different contexts, and some may or may not have always made space for you, right? And so what about the woman who's listening who is theologically confident in her calling but exhausted by constantly navigating systems that push back on it? What has kept you
Mm.
from letting the system or the systems or the places that you've been become the loudest voice over God's voice and the confidence in your calling?
Yeah, I'm glad that you call it a calling. Sometimes we call it a call, and that feels singular.
Mm.
That feels like a point in history, and I think we have to remind ourselves this is a calling.
Mhm.
So
That's good.
it's a state of being.
Mm.
So this is a calling we receive. And I think we have to keep reminding ourselves of that. I think sometimes we can be like, well, I've checked the box. I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I know that I'm where I need to be. They're like you said, theologically assured
Yeah.
that they're doing what God wants them to do. But we still, in the midst of that, have to remind ourselves of the truth of that call and of the voice of the one who calls us. And
Mhm.
so it's this there's that internal dialogue that seeps into our brains, right? I think Dr. Kurt Thompson calls it the shame attendant. And it's this little
Mhm.
voice in our ear
Okay.
that tells us you ought not be. This is not for you. What are you
Mm.
doing here? And so I think there's a to stay or to maybe prevent against that exhaustion, I think we have to battle that with reminding ourselves of the truth of our calling and the one who calls us.
Mm.
Um, and then the second thing is, I think one of the biggest things for me is to put people around me that affirm
Yeah.
that support me, that will hold up my arms when I'm tired, like
Yeah.
Moses and Aaron. This is why Ministry Chick is so stinking important
Yeah.
because essentially that's what you're doing.
Yep.
And like, if people don't have that place of belonging, those uh, encouraging voices around them, affirming what God has said to do and
Yep.
who they are, then they need Ministry Chick or they need a space like that. So I think finding those people that might be in your own home, it might be your husband, it might be a child, it might be your best friend if you're single, or somebody in your community, but you really need to have those people around you
Mhm.
that hold up your arms when you're
Yeah.
feeling exhausted, right?
Yeah.
And then I think uh, the third thing I would say to that is to realize that that conflict, when you butt up against the exhaustion of just kind of having to prove that meant to be there,
Yeah.
is that conflict is actually indicative of the Spirit doing the work in you. In
Mm.
Galatians 5:17, it says that the flesh and the spirit are opposed to one another.
Mm.
So if you're walking in the flesh, expect greased skids for yourself,
Mm.
right? Easy go. If you're walking in the spirit, you should expect some opposition,
Oh,
because
that's
the
good.
flesh and that which is the conduit for sin, flesh and spirit are naturally opposed to one another.
Mhm.
And so I think expect it.
Mm.
It's interesting that you use the word exhaustion when you asked about that. I'm so glad that you said that. I was like, ah, that's the word, you know,
It is
the word.
exhausting.
It's
It
exhausting.
is.
Yes, and the solution for exhaustion is always rest. So
Mm.
where is that shalom? Where is that space of Sabbath rest for you? And that may be different for every person.
Yeah.
That might be a beach somewhere. That might be, girl, get in bed at a decent hour. Put the email
Yes.
away.
Yes.
What is that? Uh, Clear some space in your schedule just to have nothing in there, just to
Yeah.
relax or rest or pray or whatever that is that feeds your soul. Um, I think the solution for exhaustion is Sabbath rest. It's shalom.
Mhm.
Where do you have that? Everybody's gonna have a different answer for what brings them
Absolutely,
best.
absolutely. One of my, counselors over the many years that I've been in ministry, I've been in counseling, because it is heavy and it can be hard
Yeah,
and exhausting and all the things, and I remember one time they said, "Self-care isn't selfish,
that's
it's good
right.
stewardship."
That's right.
And it totally flipped the switch for me mentally from feeling guilty of why okay, well, everybody's exhausted, it's ministry, is it y but that's not that's not the way he wants it for
Right.
us. Um,
It's
yeah,
tending the temple,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Tending to the temple. Imagine if your church, our modern version of temple, I guess. Imagine if your church didn't have a custodian.
Oh god,
Imagine if nobody repaired the air conditioner or cleaned the pews after Sunday service, right?
yeah,
Like that self-care for that building
mm,
keeps it going. It keeps it
mm,
ready for
that's a great
worship.
analogy.
Keeps it ready for worship, and we have to
Yeah,
do the same thing. For some people, that's a massage. For some people, that's prayer, that quiet space, whatever that is, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you, very interestingly study shame. I love that this was part of your dissertation and this has been part of who you are in your heartbeat. You study shame in female Christian leaders. For the woman who
Right.
is listening who has never heard that word applied to her experience, what does it actually look like and how does she recognize it in herself if and when she's in the middle of it?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love this question. I'm so grateful you asked it. Yeah. And why did I study shame on my research? I should have studied like best vacations for ministers. But no,
It would have been funner at least.
Wah, wah. No, it actually was a wonderful experience, believe it or not, to study the effects of shame specifically on Christian female leaders.
Yeah.
That was the topic of my dissertation. And the way your question is, how does that show up? You know, maybe they don't recognize that in themselves. So how does it show up? And there's there's 10 really observe easily observable ones, and I won't go into all 10 here, but I think a big way that that shows up for women is perfectionism and over control. And a lot of times for women in ministry, there's kind of this proving that has to go on, right?
Mhm.
We're kind of required to be a
Mhm.
little bit better,
Yep.
like, you know what I mean? And so that can easily go from what should be a godly excellence,
Yep. Mm.
like, let's do all things with excellence to the glory of God. That I think the enemy or even ourselves can shift that from excellence to perfectionism.
Yep.
And the reason for perfectionism often comes at as a result of a shame narrative that's in our kind of our DNA, if you will.
Mhm.
I think, and let me just back up there. Shame is a ubiquitous human emotion. It's actually the first emotional response that we ever see in scripture in the garden. It was the shame blame game.
That's
Like,
right. You're right.
the Adam was
Yep.
like, "Woman, she gave me the apple," and the
Yes.
was like, well, it wasn't an apple, the fruit, and the woman's like, "Use that old serpent," and
Right.
every which way but
Mm.
themselves are they looking at. So it is this thing that is kind of inherent about being a human on this side of the cross, on this side of the fall. So we all have it.
Yeah,
We're not always aware of it. There's
that's
two
good.
basic kind of buckets for shame. You have an internalized shame
Okay.
and a externalized shame. So shame on you. The
Mm.
externalized shame comes as a result of things like abuse, misogyny, uh,
Mhm.
uh, poor parenting, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Your socioeconomic the shame that's put on you.
Right.
Uh, Cultural mores, those kinds of things. And then there's the shame in you. So this is often a result of the shame that's put on you. Uh,
Mhm.
and so with perfectionism and over control, what happens is there's some sort of narrative like I am not good enough, so I'm going to perform it such a way that it hides that feeling.
Yeah.
So perfectionism over control, micromanaging, it can show up like that. Did you
Oh,
know that micromanaging might be a shame response.
Mm.
Um, this kind of lie that we tell ourselves, if you want something done right,
Yep.
do it yourself.
Oh.
That is not collaborative belonging. So that would that be a big one? Um, we talk a lot in women's circles, about this imposter syndrome. Number two would
Mhm.
be what I call it. It's kind of this internalized critic.
Yeah.
It may not come out, but you hear that voice. We talked about that voice, that shame attendant that just kind of plays in your ear. So that
Mhm.
it's kind of a sanctified imposter syndrome is
Mm.
this internalized critic. I think women go there. If you ever feel like you're a fraud, you've got a shame narrative at play. That's a shame response.
Mm.
I don't belong here. If they just knew that I am scrambling here,
Yeah.
you might be one of those women that can make something look great at the last minute. Like, but you are scrambling. You are past your deadline. You're making it up. You're looking at AI for answers. That if that is you and you feel guilty for that, I just want to say, girl, you're not alone.
Amen.
Right? I mean, you're getting stuff done, it's happening, but we sometimes say, "Oh, man, I'm a fraud." If they just knew how messy this was behind the scenes, that's a big one. So, that imposter syndrome can sometimes lead to this false false self, you know? And that false self is another one that's happened when you stay in that mode for so long, you can actually create what's called an unwanted identity.
Mm. Yep.
So basically, this idea of fake it till you make it. Well, what are you making? What are you making? Right. And
Right.
it's what happens a lot of times is you create a false identity for yourself. It's not true to who you are or to your specific gifts and abilities.
Mm.
So I think sometimes women find themselves pigeonholed and they're like, I don't know how I keep getting pigeonholed here. Well, you might look and see, is there a kind of a false self that you're
Yeah.
portraying?
Yeah.
So I think that might be an area too. There's things like reactivity and defensiveness that can be a shame, how shame shows up in women, detachment and numbing. If you know, in my dissertation, I interviewed one woman who just said she was told that she had a granite personality, and she realized that she really doesn't. She's tender and she's
Right.
easily wounded, but her shame response was to detach and to numb and have this
Mhm.
personified granite um, uh,
Wow.
personality. I think a big one for women is this kind of professional devotional role conflict. And this actually leads to avoiding opportunities that God might have for you
Oh.
because it doesn't necessarily fit into this idealized mode of what women should do,
Yeah.
especially in ministry.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe you're asked to stand on the stage at church on a Sunday morning and say something and speak. Well, depending on your background,
Right.
that may be a no-no, even if God is asking you to do it,
Right.
right? And so I think that one shows up quite a bit for women in ministry, and we may not even realize it, too, like
Yeah.
avoiding certain opportunities. So
Yeah.
those are some of the ways that they show up. So if you see yourself in any of those, even things like secrecy and hiding, I think there might be a shame narrative at play.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's helpful, but
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I'm sitting here going, you have to come back and we're gonna dig deeper into this specific topic because there were so many things, honestly, Amy, that you said that one stepped on my toes
I'm
in a good way, but also made me just because statistically I know who is part of the Ministry Chick Network. We do these annual surveys. I know what their pain points are. I
Mhm.
she's telling us what her needs are and I'm just going, "Oh my gosh, these are even the fact that you said perfectionism I get, micromanaging, I was like, "Oh, wait a minute." So, and coming from I'm a Gen Xer, so I already know, I just aged myself, but, um, growing up, it was you just had to do it, and you had to put your big girl pants on and be a get it done girl and figure it out. And there's some of that I'm thinking we apply into our ministry context and our role, and then we wonder why we are so exhausted and depleted, and where did that come from? But that's not my, like you said, the girl that came across like granite, but her heart was actually very tender.
Yes.
So here's the door. I would love to have you back to go deeper into this
Yeah.
topic. For now, I think what you've just given um, those that are listening is an opportunity to go, oh my goodness, I didn't see that. And awareness in coaching is a huge first step. So if you're listening and you're like, that's me, I didn't see that coming, didn't see that coming in this episode. Good. This is healthy, and this moves you towards wholeness, and clarity, and so we're glad for that. We will circle back and have more of this conversation. Um, but I want to go back to this. You're teaching in a seminary. You've kind of done the nonprofit and the ministry and been on stage and taught groups and different things like that.
Mhm.
What do you wish that someone had handed you early on in your ministry career, theologically, practically, both, whatever? And what does the woman listening need to hear right now that you didn't have access to then?
Yeah, I think, and and I have to be careful here because I am a seminary professor, but I wish I had that level of training, not necessarily one that I paid for and went to school for,
Mhm.
but I wish I had known how valuable outside of my quiet time with Jesus, outside of my personal Bible study, outside of my church Bible study,
Yeah.
but deeply theological training.
Mhm.
And even systematically, like systematic theology. So that married with how then do I apply that?
Yeah.
How then do I live that out? We do that so often with scripture, right? We look at, okay, how do I live out the reality of Galatians 5? How do I live out that reality, the application of that? But how about with doctrine? How about
Mm.
with these theological constructs? Like I didn't have that kind of training that wasn't necessarily available to me as a young wife, young stay-home mom.
Mhm.
I wish that I had had that because I sensed even back then that I was being called to equip.
Yeah.
I was being called to lead. And and so it's even more than just your typical leadership training. It's like how do we live out the reality of what we believe and not I shouldn't say just not only the direct application of scripture to our personal lives, but how is that manifested in the world? And I didn't have that kind of training. So I really
Mm.
wish that I had had that. I wish I had had more people around me cheering me on.
Mm.
Or do. I really do. I think that I um, kind of observed and acknowledged internally
Yeah.
that tension of a call that I was not yet doing.
Yeah.
And I think I sat in that space for a little too long.
Mm.
And I didn't have anybody calling that out in me.
Mm.
My friend, Michelle Attar was a pastor that really was a huge mentor to me. She said, you need somebody in your life to have to say these four letters to you. I, see,
Yep.
in, and you. You need to have I see in you people that say, I see this in you,
Yep.
Melissa. I see leadership in you, Amy. I see a call on your life. You need to have those people around you. I wish I had more of those people around earlier
Mhm.
in my life that saw it and would affirm it. And I think there's probably somebody listening today that has had those conversations. They're in leadership and they know people that need to hear that.
Yeah.
And I would just encourage you to say what's on your heart. If you're thinking it, if you're seeing somebody that needs to be encouraged, if you're seeing God's giftedness,
Mhm.
have that I see in you conversation with that person. Because they may be like me, sitting there feeling the tension of a call that you're not yet walking in, and they
Yeah.
just need that.
Yeah, that's good.
encouragement.
That's good. And I would just go on to say, you don't you don't know you don't know if you're going to see that person again. You don't know when God's calling them home. You don't know anything. So I would just encourage when God kind of nudges you in that way, just do it. Do it
Yeah,
afraid, but you're never going to hurt anybody's feelings by encouraging them
that's
in
right.
what you see in them, right? And so don't don't wait
Yeah,
and don't say, "Oh, well, I'm sure she already knows," or "I'm sure blah blah blah." You don't know.
yeah,
And here's what I think what I've learned through this episode is there could be you called it a shame attendant that is saying something else in her ear, and she just needs somebody to speak truth and love and grace over her to say, "No, I do see this in you." And I'm not talking about empty platitudes and
yeah,
and m- fake things. I'm saying what the Lord lays on your heart to say and share with that person.
yeah,
Say and share it.
that's
Don't
right.
wait.
That's right.
Don't wait. So um there's a woman listening and she's carrying an unnamed weight right now. And maybe she may not have called it shame until this conversation. So what is one thing, just one thing, one step that she can do this week to start setting it down?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. Melissa, the difference between shame and guilt. Guilt says, I've done something wrong.
Mhm.
Shame says, I am something wrong.
Yeah.
And if that voice is going on in her head, I'm I'm wrong for this.
Yeah.
I'm wrong in this. Uh, I'm wrong
Yeah.
just by living. If that is underneath that that burden, whatever that is shame.
Mhm.
The antidote for shame is empathy. Empathy differs from sympathy, right? Like sympathy says, "Oh, I feel for you."
Right.
Empathy says, "I feel you.
Yeah.
I
Big
feel."
difference.
Big difference. So empathy, this kind of shared, "Ooh, I get that. It may not be my story, but ooh, I can put myself there and I get it."
Yeah.
That is the antidote for shame.
Mm.
And so the one thing that I would tell any woman that's struggling with some kind of shame response or feeling of shame or experience of shame is to find that place of empathy, that
Mm.
person of empathy. And that happens one way, speaking it out loud.
Yeah.
Speaking it out loud to a trusted person that can
Yeah.
then show empathy to you. And if you don't have that person, you speak it out loud to the Lord because you cannot heal what you cannot name. And
Mm.
so I would say, if you can find that from a trusted other, get it, speak it out loud. And if you don't have that person around you, you do have the person of Christ who is
Yeah.
in you, and to speak it to him and
Yeah.
to share it, because that is the antidote for shame. Not confidence, not truth. It's empathy, being
Mm.
seen, because shame takes us into hiding, like our parents in the garden, and empathy says you can come into the light
Mm.
safely. And so that's what I would tell them, is to speak it out loud. That might be getting help from a counselor.
Yeah.
That might be just calling your bestie and going, I got to tell you something I've been struggling with. It might be finding some kind of professional. Honestly, I feel like it's in Ministry Chick. I think
Mm.
you can find it there. And I know that sounds like a plug, but I just really believe it.
Thank
So, maybe it's your pastor, but that's what I would say. The one thing I would do is find that place of empathy. I
Yeah.
know empathy's gotten kind of a wallop, uh, in this last year or so, in the media, and I mean a godly empathy. The empathy that we have from the Holy Spirit, from the one who has experienced everything that we've
Mm.
experienced. And, that's our Heavenly Father, Jesus.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I would say.
That's amazing. You cannot heal what you cannot name. That's a good word. Uh, for us to wrap up with today. Where is the best place for people to connect with you if they want to find out more about what you're doing or teaching or speaking, all the things?
Yeah. I'm not a huge I mean, if you wanna see baby pictures and stuff like that, I'm not a huge, social media person, but I do have my Instagram. You can find that on Amy Cedrone and, Instagram, Facebook, Amy Dean Cedrone, that's my maiden name. You can find me there, or at A Cedrone at pillarseminary.org. So I'd love
Yeah.
to visit with you that way too. So,
That's
yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you for joining us and sharing that. And just as someone that is your friend, and I can say this as for a statement of fact, you are probably one of the most empathetic people I have ever met. And every time I talk to you, I walk away feeling seen, heard, um, validated, and understood in ways that maybe I didn't even know that
Mm.
I needed to be understood. So thank you for not just saying that's what needs to happen or what you need, but to actually be a conduit of that for other people.
Well, thank you. That's one of the biggest compliments. Empathetic, not pathetic, right?
Empathetic.
I'm just kidding. That was so kind. Thank you for saying that. Thank
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us for the Ministry Chick Network podcast. We'll see you next time. Friend, I hope today's conversation with Amy gave you something that you didn't even know that you needed. If you want to connect with Amy, all the links will be in the show notes. If this is an episode that you think a friend, a coworker, or somebody else needs to hear, please forward that on. And if today's conversation stirred something within you, if it named something that you've been carrying without words, then I want to invite you to download our free Clarity Journal. It's a starting place to get clear on what's next without striving or overwhelm. You don't have to lead alone. We'll see you next time on the Ministry Chick Network podcast.